Hey, good evening, everybody. Sammy Thunder here. This is a fantastic night because you could see on the right of me is our Rookie of the Year candidate, fan favorite, content creator favorite, with the Museum of Cards, as I like to kind of mention every time I see him. Dylan, Double D Vintage Baseball Cards. How are you?
Great, Sam. Dude, Sammy, I'm so stoked that you invited me on your show again. I know you invited me, I don't know, way in the past to go on like a game show you had going on, which was awesome. And
Yeah, what?
I
Yeah.
couldn't I couldn't make it because I work Saturdays and Sundays for my wife,
Mm,
and Fridays are just crazy here trying to get prepared. Um,
yeah.
so I appreciate it then, and I've been really looking forward to coming on your channel. I've been
Yeah.
watching you for a long time. I feel like I was watching you like when you had like 300 followers, or what do you call them,
Mhm.
subscribers. And
Yeah.
I appreciate who you are as a
Oh man,
person and how you
thank you.
show your cards, and it was a pleasure meeting you in the flesh. And you're just like you are on camera, which is so
I try.
great.
Yeah, listen, man. That's really nice of you to say. I really appreciate that. And honestly, it was. I was really looking forward to meeting you too. And I love your energy, and I love your attitude towards cards. Everybody kind of, it's infectious. So everybody felt that. And it's just the Double D Dylan. It's just it sticks. You know who everyone knows who you are, and everybody they share that same passion. So it's really, yeah, it's really cool to be able to kind of sit down and talk with you. And funny enough, the vintage trivia is going to be making a comeback. Funny enough, because I spoke with Theo today, and I wasn't even. I mentioned I wanted to kind of help with the new channel that him and 3D cards, what they're working on, 3D Kid, or it's like the four collectors channel. I think you're going to be making an appearance on it, but yeah, I mentioned I just wanted to help in some ways, and he suggested to do the vintage trivia on that channel, and I thought that's awesome. Yeah, definitely, like maybe once in a while, just he's gonna try to do it on a Sunday night. So yeah,
Dude, I'm excited for that too. That I
yeah,
think that's a really cool concept that him and John put together, and
yeah,
Caesar, Pepino Man, and James involved,
yeah,
and
yeah,
just to have a like collectors community to go. And for me, I always miss Sunday because Alex, because I always watch the COG guys for like a year. Love those guys. And I think, you were always on there in the live stream and stuff. You've been on their channel. I think those guys are fantastic. I love those guys. And I was on there, but then we started doing shows on Sunday.
right,
And my shows, normally I'm home later in the evening. So this will be good because I always miss Alex Bowman, 53. He does such a great live on Sunday. And I normally am always missing that or in the car. I think this is going to be after that. So I'm stoked because maybe I actually get involved, and I think it'd be good because they're having like that thing.
the marathon.
Yeah, the marathon, and do like your trivia show on the marathon would be really
No,
cool.
no, 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 no. That's but the marathon, obviously, that's the big announcement today.
Yeah.
And I know you're going to be involved in that, which is really cool. So I don't know if you want to. I'll let you kind of mention more about it because I know you're more in
Oh, I
tune
don't
with
know.
that.
I don't know anything. I just know that we're like I talked to Theo at the national, and he was talking to Adam, and we're like, dude, yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah, of course we'll be involved. That would be awesome. We're
Yeah.
just there for that, 1 hour. I don't know all the details, um, everything,
Well,
but
I think it's a phenomenal idea. I know there's like a number of kind of unified community channels. Like there's obviously Bench Clear Media, but I feel like this is kind of like this is a great opportunity for a lot of the content creators that are kind of are really kind of in tune with each other, and Theo and John kind of taking the reins and putting this channel together, and then kind of just sharing that with everybody. It's a great window of opportunity, especially for some of the newer content creators that are out there that really kind of don't get the same look or the opportunities. It's just a great chance to really kind of help especially those new channels really kind of grow and expand. And the one thing that I took away from the national this year was, everybody was so respectful of each other, and it doesn't matter if you had 50 subscribers or if you had 5,000. I mean, that was just, there was just involvement and an equal amount of respect for everybody.
Yeah, I found that equally so. I thought that was really cool. It's, we all have our own like mini groups that we become closer friends with, and the guys
Hmm.
that have been on here longer have, you know, their niche of friends, but they don't exclude us new people in this community. They don't exclude
No.
anybody, and they're very kind and polite, and they bring you in, and it is unlike anything else in life where all these cliques our entire lives. We've been growing up
Mm.
in high school and elementary, and all the way through our lives. There's like these little groups, and
Yeah.
everyone is welcome. We're all just maybe because we're all crazy and we all just collect these guys on cardboard, and it's like, dude, who else like feels like what they feel when they look at a card? Like it just brings the joy out, and it's so hard to describe to people who don't collect. So it unites all of us in the fairness, like you said. It really is touching, and it's just unbelievable. I just wish it was closer to my home. It was so far.
I
That was
know.
a struggle for sure.
What is that? So let's speak on that a little bit. I mean, living in Hawaii, what is the card market like out there? I mean, is there any sort of reputation for card shows or card shops?
Well, on Oahu, which I do not live on Oahu. I'm not going to say what island I
No, no,
live.
no, of
I do not
course.
live
I
on
don't want to,
Oahu.
yeah.
Um, Oahu has a card scene. There's card shows over there. They do pop cons, and I think even the National was there one year because I have a
Mm.
card, or is it Midway National? I have a Duke Kanamoku card that I got from Nate Tops 85401, that says the National on the back. So there's definitely a card scene, but where I live, we have somehow I found like 5 or 6 years ago at my mall, which is an outdoor mall, very small. But there is an outdoor mall. They have a card show once a month. And for me, it was just like, dude, this is awesome. But there's literally there at that time, it was like probably like 4 or 5 tables. Two of them
Yeah.
were vintage, and the vintage guys have become really close friends with one guy in particular, but they're all in their 70s. And no one else looks at the vintage cards. So they kind of just go just to hang out, and they do it every month. But I haven't been able to make it because it's on Saturdays during my shows that I work. Um,
Hmm.
but I still am in contact with these guys every so often, at least once a month. And then the owner of the card shop over here at the mall is it's the hobby shop. So he sells remote control cars and Pokemon, you name it, like one of those type of shops. But his card world has expanded, and I'm really close with him. He's been in the card room. He has fish. I raise koi fish as well, so he got
Oh,
some fish
cool.
from me, and it's like it's a small little world that we all live in. So we're kind of just on our own over here. eBay's our main source,
Right.
but as far as community goes, YouTube is what I got.
And that's kind of like, yeah, that I imagine that gives you such a great chance to be able to connect with so many people throughout the day. Um, and I imagine there's a longing. I mean, being in Hawaii, like you mentioned, there's only like two guys that are selling vintage, and there's really not as much opportunity compared to places like in the Northeast or even the South. I think there's a lot of shows in the United States, so it makes perfect sense why you kind of make just kind of have that chance to really interact with everybody and kind of have your finger on the pulse of what's going on.
Well, I'm jealous. I always see you setting up at your shows. I would love to do that. I'm at a place now since I'm like out and in public with my collecting. Man, if I was still living on the mainland, I would be at shows every weekend having pop
Right.
up,
Oh, I
because
know.
how can you not like go and have a good time, even if you're not selling anything, just communicating with other people about cards in the flesh. It
Yeah.
would just, yeah, I get so jealous. I mean, not that, it's a jealousy, but it's not a bad jealousy.
No,
It's
no, no,
an
no.
excitement for it. And it's really cool. And it's something that one day I could see myself like loading up those hard cases with like whatever, those Pelican cases, and like traveling like 4 times a year to these big shows one day when I'm at that place where I want to really dive in like that. But right now, I've been selling on eBay for 20 plus years, and I sell common cards. So I've been selling cards my whole life. That's what I love to do. So
Let's
I'm
see.
still involved.
Well, let's speak on that a little bit because that was one of the things I was curious about. Is I'm a person where I jumped back into the hobby in 2021. I was out of the hobby for the longest time, probably a good maybe 15, 20 years. And, I think that's pretty normal for most people is, it's a hobby for that when you were, between the ages of 10 and 14, that's when you kind of sank your teeth into it. And for me, it's just, life kind of moved on. And, then there are some collectors that have stuck around for a long time and just kind of stuck with it. And I always kind of think of those people that do that as the really smart ones because they kept at it and they were investing at the right time in their collections and they just built up these great vast collections of such great beauties. So my question is, were you the kind of person that at 14 you still stuck with it, or did you kind of take a break and come back?
I never stopped once in my whole life.
Mm.
I have been buying and selling and collecting since my first memories in life. In all reality, like I look at some of the cards. I did like a Genesis on my show at one point, and I looking at the cards, and some of them from like 82 and 83. I'm like, man, was I collecting cards when I was 3 years old? I don't know. But I know for sure that I have never stopped. In high school, I was like, everyone knew I collected cards. My girlfriends in high school, all my friends knew I collected. Like parents' dads would show me their collections, and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is this and that. I never stopped. And there was always rumors in school that I bought my first house off of baseball cards. And like
Wow.
our reunion, our 10-year reunion, everyone thought, like, I had numerous people coming to me saying, dude, I heard you sold a bunch of cards and you bought your first house with that. Just like, that's not true. First and foremost, not at all. But it was really fun to know, like, dude, I was,
That's a
I was
great rumor.
yeah, I was open about it. I wasn't like, I collected by myself, but I also wasn't ashamed of it. It was just a part of my life. And when graded cards came in, I always say this. A lot of people poo-poo graded cards, but man, my generation, like, I was gung ho. I was never more excited about anything in collecting history than when graded cards came in, because that's when I could dive into vintage, because I knew I was getting a real card, an authentic card. And I knew the grades I was going for were sevens and eights because they looked like they were packed fresh. And
Hmm.
I didn't, I wasn't a centering guy then. It was just literally like, man, this thing looks really good. And I didn't have to talk to anybody. Like these dealers back then were like, I just watched this movie, Blast from the Past.
Oh, I
And
love that movie.
oh, it's such a great movie.
Yeah, Brendan
And
Fraser.
yes, Brendan Fraser. And he actually met his girlfriend in that movie, the girlfriend in the movie, at a card shop. She was working at the card shop. And Hugo from Signs of Pastime pointed this out to me because I just bought a mantle card and it was on there. So that's why I watched it. But what I found was really cool was, I mean, what I noticed was like that guy was really grumpy that worked at the card shop in that movie.
Yes.
That's like, I didn't have like mean guys that worked at the card shop close to me, but I did not have guys that would go out of their way and tell me, like, steer me in the direction of vintage, when I was staring at the vintage cases every day. I rollerbladed to the shop every single day, and I go home with my little brown baggie with 1987, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92 Topps cards,
Mm.
wax backs, and then I have dollar bin vintage cards. If they would have just like said, hey, you should, instead of spending $10 on wax, I know you're interested in these vintage, you're always looking at them, maybe you should do this. No, never happened. I went to tons of card shows when I was a kid at the local malls, which are the greatest thing in the world. No one ever talked to me. I was so scared. Like, I just looked with my hands behind my back, right, and look down and just look at those beautiful vintage cards. And if somebody would have said to me, like a Mangini or like anybody, just give me some pointers and some tips, it would have been different. But once the grading thing, getting back to that in like 98, it was on. And I went huge. I was buying so much because it was just like, it was opened up there. I'm like, wow, this is only this much. This is this much. It was an absolute blast. And I was selling them at the same time. I was buying them on the pit and like,
Oh boy.
and just going after it.
I thought we lost you for a second.
Still, we're back.
Yeah, we're back.
So the greatest thing to me was the greatest thing that ever happened to the vintage card world. It doesn't matter what other people think. This is my own opinion, and for me, that's what drove my collecting and still drives my collecting. Not that I'm not scared to buy ungraded cards now, but it is really a great way for people to be safe about buying cards. So yeah, there you go. There's my story of never getting out of cards.
Well, let me just go back a step and say, I mentioned something before about how it was normal for like, hey, when you get to like 14, 15, it was normal to kind of get out of the hobby. Not to say that it's abnormal for people to stick with it. It was just seems like it was more common that people would get out of that, get out of the hobby.
It was abnormal for people to stick with it. I mean, baseball cards were looked upon as a childish type.
I don't think so. I know what you're saying, but I mean, I remember going to shows at 13 and 14 years old, and I'd see those 75-year-old guys set up, and let's be honest, those guys were there to not only sell the vintage, but also were there to showcase and to kind of really show off the great stuff that they had in their display cases. And if they found the right price, they would move it. Because I feel the same way sometimes when I'm selling a card at a show. I'm there to sell it, but at the same time, it's like, you got that emotional attachment, but it's best to move it.
Yeah.
So, I get what you're saying. I mean, in the grand scheme, for people that may not be collectors who don't fully understand, they might see it as a childish hobby, but
I think times have changed. I want to clarify. I think back then, in that era, especially because in '93 things just kind of collapsed.
Right.
A lot of people backpedal, but since I was 13 years old, the collapse meant nothing to me. I wasn't buying hundreds of dollars worth of cards. I had no big investments in these cards. It was simply, I could care less. I was unaffected by that.
I love that attitude. Attitude.
I think that's kind of where I was going with a lot of people could have kind of hid their collectible side, maybe their nerdy side to themselves, or I could care less. I was a surfer and a baseball player, and I was just like, I was kind of a free spirit, just like, dude, this is me. I am who I am. I had some troubles in elementary school. I've talked about it, being bullied because I was really short. But once I passed that hurdle, like once I got out of that in like 7th or 8th grade, whenever that was, I blossomed as a human, and I just became me. And I'm really optimistic. I'm always optimistic in life, and I'm not ashamed to like express the way I feel about things. And I'm always like, obviously things happen in life that are hard to deal with, and I'm going through one of those right now, but I'm optimistic in everything I do, regardless. I'm optimistic in baseball cards. I'm optimistic that the waves are going to be better tomorrow than they were today. I have that attitude. I don't know why it is. So I've always just embraced collecting as part of my life.
How do you explain the positive attitude in terms of collecting vintage? What is that? How do the two correlate with each other?
I mean, the positive attitude for collecting vintage is it's nostalgic. It's me as a kid going to the local card shop and going to this one place on Beach Boulevard. They had like a card museum. They had a Barbie museum as well. And I've said this a lot, but anyone who doesn't know me, like this, my family used to eat at this place called Tito's on Beach Boulevard in California. Some people will know where this is. There is a little mini amusement park across the street from Tito's Tacos. And at the amusement park, there was a Barbie museum, and a huge doll museum, like a huge one, legit. And then there was a card shop, and the card shop had a wall like mine, and it had all the old vintage stuff displayed. And I just remember seeing all the names of Hank Aaron, Ted Williams, and I would just go in that shop and never buy anything, and I just stare at those cards. So when I collect vintage today, anytime I pick up a vintage card, it brings me back to that very moment. This Robin Yount rookie card right here takes me back to my friend's house when I was 5 or 6, and he had a stack of 1975 Topps cards on his dresser. He didn't know what they were. I knew what they were, and I went through them and I found that card. And back then it was worth $27 in the Beckett, and I never forgot that card. And every time I see one, it brings me back to that place. So for me, it's nostalgic, and it takes me to the happy place of my childhood and a happy place now. I'm in the future, I'm in the present, and I'm in the past. It all is in one in my collecting world. That's what's so fun about it. You're always thinking about what these cards are going to be worth in the future. I am, and not everyone. I'm always thinking about what they're going to be worth in the future, what I'm going to do with them in the future. And then I'm always thinking about them in the present because I'm just with them and I'm entering them in my computer. I'm organizing them, displaying them. And then I'm in the past at the same time thinking about when I saw these cards as a kid. Like my coach had some really cool cards when I was a kid in Little League, and I got to hold these things, and I was just blown away. So it's all relevant. Collecting vintage takes me in all places, and it keeps me grounded, and it's something I look forward to every day. I come home from work, from play, or just from outside, and I come into the card room, or the museum room is what we call this, me and my wife, and it's an inspiration when we get in here, and I can't get enough of it.
Take me through, like, when you do get home from work, are you constantly maneuvering cards in binders? Or, I mean, I'd imagine, your passion is real. I mean, there's no denying that. And so someone who loves the hobby this much must constantly be making different maneuvers with their setups, or just kind of like just admiring different cards every single day. Take me through a day of when you come home. What do you and you walk into the museum room, your card room. What exactly are you doing?
All right. So my favorite days of all are when I'm at work or surfing or just outside, and I know that night I have a stack of cards on my desk, whether they're ungraded or graded, and I'm going to take those and put them into my Excel spreadsheets, and I'm going to add those into my collection. That means I get to spend time with each individual card under a light, and I stare at them, and then I have my displays like you see in front of you. I move them around, and then when I'm done entering it, put it in the display, and I just spend time with it. And then after that, or if I don't have that, when I come home, right here behind you is my huge giant wall museum. I have a couple displays. I will come home and get my toothbrush, and there's a bathroom in this secret door over here you'll see in between, and I'll grab my toothbrush, brush my teeth, and I'll just stare at the cards. And my wife she gets it, but she also doesn't get it. My whole life I've had displays everywhere. So we used to have one on the mainland like 10 years ago in our kitchen pantry. I had a display of cards, graded cards in our pantry because it was dark, and she was cool with it. And she'd be like, if she didn't know where I was in there in the dark with lights looking at it. That's what I do. I come home and I'll just look, and I'll look for different things. Like I'll discover something on a card that I'd never noticed, and I could have had the card for 20 years. Just that's what I do, I don't know how else to explain it other than the fact that it just brings me joy and it brings me a sense of peace and it grounds me. I'm an outside guy. I'm very active. I can't just sit inside and do eBay all day. I can't sit on my computer all day. So when the night comes, I'm like really excited because I'm like, okay, I'm going into the card room. Like today was early. You're like 3 o'clock. I'm like, okay, well, cool. I'm gonna hang out with my cards probably the rest of the night. Put these away and organize some things. So yeah, I'm always changing things around. I'm always organizing, just like anyone in this card world.
Yeah.
And I had the great release of off-centered stuff this year, which was a huge, giant transition for me in my collecting. The biggest one of my life. I unloaded hundreds and hundreds. I think I'm at like 350 graded cards that were in my collection for a decade or more, and I sold them. And I've accumulated different ones, some of the same back, but in a different grade, different eye appeal. The grade was irrelevant. So the great shifts happen in our collecting, which makes this ever changing. It makes our collection that much more fun. And it's not that some guys get bored of certain cards, like, okay, I don't want that card anymore because I'm just bored of it. I don't I don't get bored of a card, but I will realize like what I've done in the last year. Not only have I sold off my off-centered stuff, but I've also realized that I don't need to have every single Brooks Robinson card. I don't need to
Right.
have
Right.
every Carlton Fisk card. Um, I'm I have too many cards already. I want to display the cards that I have. So I've narrowed that focus down to going after guys that I just resonate with. The Hank Aaron, Ted Williams, Eddie Matthews, Ernie Banks, um, Joe DiMaggio would love to get one of his cards. Like focusing on these big boys, and I would rather have five of the exact same card of a guy that I really want and a card that I really love over five different cards that are, just not nobodies, but not guys that I really think maybe in the future are going to be worth more. So before people get mad at me because I'm doing that, I also have a collection that I have ungraded, and it's my raw collection, and I grade them myself, and I have binders. That's where I go after every Brooks Robinson card and every Carlton Fisk card and every Rod Carew card goes in there, and I spend $2 on those cards instead of $30 to $50 on the graded version. So I'm spending my money where I think in the future will hold more value, and for me, I have more joy on the graded aspect and seeing them on the wall. And then I also get the pleasure of getting all those cool cards in an ungraded form, inexpensive, and in my collection in a different form. So,
Oh, oh,
that's what I love.
so let me. That's a really interesting concept, and I'm kind of on a different spectrum on that because for a while I was building sets, and then I got away from that, and then I started doing player sets, and I was collecting all the Ryans, all the Seavers, all the Mays, and then eventually I just said, you know what, I'll keep since I those are my guys. I'll keep Ryan's rookie and I'll keep his second year, but I'll sell everything else. I'll keep the oldest Mays that I have and keep his other and just kind of repeating that process for certain players. But the one thing that struck me with what you said is, yeah, you'll invest um, heavily like into the cards you want. So like the ones I'm thinking of are the most recent ones. Even though this came as a trade, was the Sandy Koufax 1960 and the Willie Mays 1960. I know you got those as a trade. And another thing you mentioned was that the grade is not the concern; it's the presentation. And I remember looking at those cards. I think the Mays was a 5, and the Koufax was a 4, 4.5,
3.5.
and 3.5. Okay, but they present like they're much better, and so it's one of those. It's really cool, and then that you go that route. But then you also mentioned that maybe you're displaying a little bit of patience with this because these cards are so readily available, like a Brooks Robinson that is $1 or $2 or $3. they're everywhere. So over time, like it's like pocket change after spending the big money on the big card. You could just pull in a bunch of those cards at various times, and I think that's really really interesting because people seem to kind of zero in so much on these on player runs that they forget that those cards like Brooks Robinson 1976, 1977, 75 even, those cards you can get really easily without having to spend too much time. Now, granted, if you want to buy them graded, that's a different story. But if you're just wanting to have them, it doesn't require as much thought or consideration, in my opinion. But I don't know if
Yeah.
that's, I don't know if I'm, um, uh,
No, you're nailing it. You're saying, yeah, no,
okay.
yeah, I'm digging what you're spitting out. Totally understanding it. Oh,
Yeah,
100%. 100%. And you know what else too? Like the grade thing, not to really focus on that, but like that Sandy Kovacs, the 3.5. I put a picture of my old one that I sold. That was a
I
PSA
saw
6.
that. I
And the
saw that
6
one.
looked terrible compared to the 3.5. And in the flesh, like it's not even close. So that's my focus. And for me to invest like that, say I bought the card outright, which I didn't, I did a trade. If I bought the card outright, say it was $120, that's such a small investment. And in the long run, that card is not going to be worth less than $120. Even if the world crashes and the market crashes, it's like, how low can that go? 80
Right.
bucks, 60 bucks. Where if you spend buy the 6 at $275, you've got a lot longer way for that to crash. And especially one that looked like the one I had, off centered, not just a run of the mill 6, just a standard 6. To my mind, there's a lot more room for those to go down than to go up. So I really my focus has really changed. And the lower dollar cards, like you said, the end of the show, man, I was going in dollar bins and just grabbing out just cool cards that I
Mhm.
love, and those go in my binders. And there's nothing more fun than having 60 cards or to go through and grade them myself and put them in my collection, and I get all the cards that way. And then those don't cost any money. And then what's really cool, Sammy, is my goal originally when I started doing the grading my own stuff way back and putting them in these sleeves is eventually I figured, well, the card pricing will catch up, and those will grow as well, just like anything. The $1 cards become $2 cards just in inflation alone, right? So at some point these cards will be worth grading maybe in 10, 20 years. And you know what? The last year and a half, those cards I had in binders, I've taken like 80 of them or so out and gotten them graded. So they move from there to the next collection sometimes, and it's
Right.
really fun. It's really fun to see that you paid $1 for this card, and there was just to have it, and you picked out the one you wanted, and now it's worth grading for $10, or
Mhm.
18 bucks, and now it's worth $40. It's a fun system that I feel like put into place through all these years of trial and error and just like messing around, and YouTube's helped a lot with that.
Well, I think it's also fun that, over time you're buying these without really kind of realizing that your collection of these $1 to $5 cards are steadily growing. And then one day you open up your binder and you're like, wow, this kind of just came out of nowhere. All of these cards over time, over maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years spent, and you have, like 20 Carlton Fisk 1974, third year cards, or even the second year card in 73. So, um,
Yeah,
it's a
absolutely.
really cool. I mean, it's a really cool thought to think of for anybody that's looking into growing their collection in a certain way. Uh, no, there's no right or wrong way, of course, but it's a unique way. It's a unique way that you do it. So it's really cool to kind of hear your methods.
Thanks, Sammy. Hey, you know what? Um, you said you got back into it in 2021.
Yeah.
I
It's yeah.
I was like, I really love the direction you're going. And I always thought this in my head, and today, and for what I did with the whole like changing my entire collection out to centered cards. That was a huge giant epiphany and a huge giant change. But if I started from ground zero and I was a collector and I just started out, I love what you're doing, and you're focusing on, this isn't a popular, maybe not a popular thing, but going after the big rookie cards of all the Hall of Famers. I wish I did that my entire life. I grabbed tons. There was a time in my life where I went huge and got tons of these giant rookies. I sold a lot of them off, but I never got like the big boys, the Hank Aaron, which I finally got, like the Willie Mays 1952. It's not his rookie, but the Topps card, like that's a huge one. Cards like that, to go after those, I think is really not only just smart, but just awesome, because now after you get the big, tall, the fruit that's really hard to get to, it's really easy to get the other stuff. I think it's a really cool method that you're going after. And even, I know you're trying to fund your own collecting. And I like to do that as well. I pull from money that I work as well, but I like to fund most of my eBay purchases with eBay sales. So I love that concept that you're taking as well. I think it's awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, it's been a learning process over time. I mean, it was set building, player runs, and then I realized I was I mean, in the grand scheme of things, my collection is nowhere near as big as some of the other creators, and even at the highest, like the peak of what I had at one point, it still wasn't a lot, but I started noticing. I started kind of questioning myself: do I really need all the Alk lines? Do I need all the Ernie Banks? No, I could be happy with his rookies and his second year maybe. And I started realizing that once I started selling these cards, I thought it was going to be a very big challenge to let go emotionally. Like I just sold my 1959 Willie Mays. It was an SGC6. It's a beautiful card. And I sold it to a guy who was looking for high grade, or like mid to high grade Mays, and shipped it off the other day. And I was thinking, will I regret it? Will I be upset? Will I miss it? And I haven't really thought about it too much because, I have my 52 Mays and the Bowman and Topps. I have the 54 Mays, which I really love. And those, like, knowing my mindset now, it could always change down the road, but I'm happy with the small, quaint collection that I have now. But I'm not to say I admire those that create these vast collections. It's just a lot to look at. I love seeing your room that you have. When I first started watching your videos and you first came on the scene, I thought, man, this guy is going to captivate such a great audience because of that backdrop, and also your positive attitude and your energy. This guy's going to take the ball running. So yeah, I don't want to take anything away from anyone that builds big collections, because I love seeing what's next. So speaking of that, I'm seeing you have a huge parade of Robin Yount rookie cards. I need to know what's going on there.
Well, this is my favorite card of all time.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier.
Because of that story I told you. And
yeah,
I've had there was one time I probably had 40 of these, and I had 5 rows on display with them. But I'm doing the same thing with the Robin Younts. I sold all my off-center stuff, and now I'm recollecting all of them again in center.
Are you trying to get them in each grade 1 to 1
no,
through 10?
Absolutely, no, absolutely not. I could care less about that. I just want all really perfectly good, centered, beautiful, eye appeal cards. That's all I'm going for. I'm doing that with the George Brett as well. I have so many George Brett rookies.
But is it a matter of because I've done this with Tom Seaver 1969. I can't help but if I see a great centered card for a great price, I can't help but buy it. Is that the same with the Robin Yount for you?
Same thing. It's a problem. Absolute problem. I will if I'm on eBay and there's one ending and it's well centered and the image is nice, I mean, as long as it's not an 8, I'm gonna go after it. It's like it's a full blown addiction, 100%. And I have that problem with the Reggie Jackson rookie, and I have that
Mm.
problem with the George Brett rookie. I have a lot of both of those as well. Not as many as the Younts, but I'm working on it. I would love to have 100 Reggie Jackson rookies one day, all perfectly centered, which is impossible. There might not even be 100 perfectly centered Reggie Jacksons in the entire world, but maybe.
There's going to be a day where you're going to be set up at a show in your like in the far future where I'm just going to walk by and see a display case of like hundreds of younts and just I can just imagine. I mean, just taking the museum and then putting it into a display case.
Oh, it'd be so fun. I have this secret. Well, I mean, I'll let the secret out of the bag, but I have this secret dream of mine is one day after, I collect as far as I want to collect. I'm going to send all my cards, assuming they're still in business, and I think they will because they're owned by Fanatics now. PWCC, all my cards.
Yeah,
And I'm going to have, because they do those free stickers and they put the
right.
E for excellent for the grade. And my goal is to get every one of my cards in the E or superior, the S sticker, and then have them go for way more than they would otherwise, and then sell it all and then start over and buy just big giant whale of cards. I don't know when that is because but I just have this dream of mine. Like one day I'll sell it all when I'm like, who knows, 50, 60, and then I will just go after like have this whole wall of Babe Ruths or something.
Wow.
It's fun. I mean, we all have like funny little envisions we have, but that's kind of where I see my collection going one day. I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna send it all to PWCC, have them put those little dumb stickers on there, and make the cards more valuable.
Well, my wife and I have been like we always kind of just imagine what our future is going to be, and one of the future thoughts is we get one of those Airstream ships, like the Airstream
Yeah.
buses, and so that's going to be our mode of transportation. And I'll be retired and hopefully living off the pension that I'll have, and we retire and 401k and whatnot. But I'll be like my envision traveling around the country with my display case of maybe whatever cards I collect over the period of time, and setting up at shows on every single weekend somewhere new each weekend.
Dude, that would be
Uh,
awesome. I mean, I couldn't think of anything more fun.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's these sort of things we envision, but it's the first time we've actually ever mentioned that
Yo,
on here.
likewise
But
with mine. I'm not gonna. It's like it's our secrets out of the bag now.
yeah. um, so, I mean, obviously, I mean, I kind of got a glimpse of your collecting methods, and you mentioned that you were very similar in the sense we also sell to collect. Um, what's on the horizon?
Um, I just keep collecting. I mean, I have like many little things that I'm trying to collect, like all the Upper Deck Heroes autographs, the SP versions, not like the ones they made later, but the ones that were like the Nolan Ryan, the Reggie, and the Hank Aaron. I have things like that I'm going after, but as far as like, I really want to get some. I want to start concentrating on some big cards, but I struggle so hard not buying little cards because I love little cards too. So I just kind of my goal is to not spend so much money on little cards and save up for more bigger cards. But it's easier said than done. And as far as like my channel goes, I kind of reverse course. I was really wanting to like kind of grow my channel. In the past, I was taught, I've been on some shows with Adam and talking about, yeah, I really want to pump up my channel and try and make it bigger. I completely reverse course on that. I'm a collector, and I
Yeah.
realize my place is a collector and the collecting aspect, and like going to the national solidified my position in that. I did not want to go to any of the corporate booths. I didn't want to go talk with the guys from Tag Grading or the guys from PSA or um, anyone like that, or try and get on people's shows. I was focused on the cards, and I really was just trying to hunt down some cards because I don't get to see them in the flesh. And I'm a collector, and I've learned that I don't really, honestly, I'm scared to have a bigger channel. I talked to Mike Moynihan about it a little bit at the event on Thursday. I was only with him for like 10 minutes or something, but once you get a big channel, you get some people who aren't as kind in the comments. And if I say one thing wrong, like, hey, I'm gonna sell this card because I think it's ugly, man, it's like, dude, I'm gonna take some heat. Like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm a collector. When I'm talking about, people know me already. When I'm talking about me selling these off-center cards, doesn't mean I didn't love the card. Doesn't mean it wasn't hard for me not to sell that card. It was a huge deal for me to sell these cards I had for 20 years. I love them. They're beautiful off-centered, but I was going in a different route, and I didn't get any hate from it, which is awesome. Probably because I'm a small channel. If I would have, you make a trade and you talk about it, and then you get someone that is mad at you. Like, I don't want to be that. I'm really just focusing. If my channel grows organically as a collector's channel, like a Pepino Man type channel, like I love that. I love his channel. I love the way he does it. He just comes home and he wants to look at baseball cards. That's me. But I also, as you know, I like to put my thoughts out there. I like to put my opinions out there. So I will go further than some collectors, where I'm gonna say what I think is gonna be more valuable in the future. I'm gonna say what I think about this decision that Beckett did, or this. I'm not scared to say that, as long as I'm not saying it in a negative light regarding another human on the other side of that camera, or on the other side of that company. I'm trying to be very careful with the words that I say, but also, everyone has to understand that we curate our own museums, we curate our own collections. There is, like you talked about, there is no wrong way of doing this. In my opinion, could be 100% wrong. These centered low grade cards could be the worst decision financially you could ever make. That is for me in my own life to find out later, because that's the rabbit hole I'm going down.
It's your personal decision. It's
It's my
yours
personal
alone.
decision. It's
Yeah.
your cards. It's your collection. So when I will never talk down on on someone's cards. I love seeing an off-centered card. It wouldn't. Someone shares a card. I don't want someone to be ashamed to share their Robin Yount rookie card because it's off-centered. No way. I still want to see the card. I don't care. It doesn't matter. When I'm watching someone's channel, it's more about the words that are coming out of their mouth and their
Right.
actions, and their spirit and how they're collecting than the cards themselves. But obviously, I love looking at the cards. That's the most important thing when I'm watching a show. I want to see cards, but I want to hear them talk about the cards. So clarify the whole point of, like, dude, I'm a collector, and that's where my channel, that's the future of my channel. I am 100% pure, like, just in this for fun. I'm in this for friendships. I'm in this for a good time. That's it.
I mean, and I can be a witness to that, as just for anyone watching, as I've met you personally, as I've watched your channel religiously. You are as authentic 100%, and your passion speaks through beyond the camera. So there's no denying that, and I can just kind of feel that energy that you just mentioned, that you talked about. Um, you know those are the channels, the organic ones, that, like the Pepino Man, or he just comes in, presents baseball cards, talks why he loves X, Y, and Z, these baseball cards. But um, I mean, it's well said, and I kind of gravitate towards those type of channels as well. So
And there's nothing wrong with growing your channel and going that way.
no, 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 no,
Clarify
no.
that too. Like, dude, to each their own. Like Mike, baseball collector, and Mike Junk Wax Hero, and you, if you're going any, I have no problem with that. It's amazing. I think it's it is unbelievable what these guys put out day in and day out videos and do all research and go to these events and set up meetings and go. Man, that's just not me. It would suck the joy out of it for me. I don't want a sponsorship. I don't want that. I just want to be able to do and say whatever I want to say and be on whatever shows invite me and just have a good time with it.
Yeah. No, and as you mentioned, to each their own, and everyone's going to go in a certain direction they want to go in, and um, at the end of the day, we're all kind of operating under the same sphere of collecting, and
Now, hold on. Let me tell everybody
yeah,
a story. Story of the last night of the National. I was hanging out with you. We
okay,
were at, I forgot whose thing we were at, but we were at that restaurant.
Filmington, I think, right? On Friday?
Filmington, yeah. And
Yeah,
we just took that picture, and then a huge storm came in.
yeah,
Ken Golden came in.
yeah,
He walked in. I got a photo with him, went over there, and then jammed out. And we were all going back to the hotel. You were outside, right? And
yes,
it was like pouring rain, and then like there was the guys from Ken Golden's show that was on Netflix, and they all showed up like dressed, I guess you call it dressed to the nines. And
yeah,
I ripped my shirt off to cover my backpack. You ripped your shirt off too. Didn't
yes,
you rip your shirt off
yeah.
too? And then we're running, like, and then lightning was shooting across sideways. It was insane. I was like, where are we? I thought we were gonna get struck by lightning. It
Yeah,
was,
I mean, it was a big
oh
open parking lot right
yes.
outside the Lowe's hotel, and that was a concern of mine because we both, like, as soon as we crossed the street to get back to the hotel, I remember you turned around. I think it was you that turned around to me and said, "You saw that, right?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I totally saw that huge bolt." And I'm thinking, "My God, we're in an open parking lot space." Now, granted, the chances of getting hit by lightning, you have a better chance of winning the lottery, but the odds are still there. So I was like, all right, let's hurry up and get back. So
Hey, coming from a person who has been attacked by a tiger shark, anything could happen.
yeah.
So me being the shortest guy running through that parking lot, I felt a lot better than you. Suckers! That was a great story. That was crazy,
that
man.
that
I
was
never seen
that
lightning
worth the
like that.
price of admission. That was a great way to finish.
Oh,
For my at least for my vacation of being at the National.
me too.
You're going to be at the next. I imagine you're going to be at Cleveland next year, right?
Yeah, I would love to go. I want to hopefully be in a better headspace this next one.
Sure.
I was in a great headspace the first couple of days, but then I got some news at home, so I really want to be home.
Right.
So this coming year, if all lines up well, I will love to go again.
Very cool, man. Definitely. I mean, I'll definitely be there as well. Um, So before we finish, Dylan, I don't know if I know that a lot of the people that watch my channel, I think pretty much majority, if not all of them, watch yours as well. Is there anything you want to just kind of mention before we finish up?
Yeah, you can follow me on Double D Vintage Baseball Cards, and then if you like to buy any common cards or like insert cards, go on my eBay. It's 31414 sports cards. And if you do, send me a note, send me a message. I'll shoot you one of my surfing cards and maybe something extra. Yeah, I love that. That's kind of how I enjoy the hobby too. I sell these cards that I pull out of blaster boxes. I just put them on, list them, and it's a great way to stay involved and look at the cards again. So yeah, that's it, Sammy. I really had a good time hanging out with you. It
Yeah.
was natural. It was a blast. And I can't wait to have you on my show and then also turn back the clock. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you very much. So, for those watching, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed. Definitely learned a lot from Dylan. Just being able to kind of hear his ways of collecting, his ways of selling, his eBay experience, his little bit of his background in Hawaii. So, learning about his collecting and who he collected from. So it's really cool. And so, thank you so much, Dylan, for kind of getting personal with your history and your present and your collecting. So thank you so much again for joining.
You're welcome. Thanks, man. Appreciate
All right,
it.
have a good night, y'all.